Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is English from IGS Electronics. Today we're going to have a look at something that I am currently working on. And one of the jobs that I'm doing is upgrading all electronics into newer electronics. So basically I have a big large machine that is fairly old, not that old, but fairly old. But unfortunately the electrical system is no longer supported. And one part of the machine that it requires a upgrade is basically a slotting section machine, which does a lot of cutting and a lot of positioning going on in there to get the things to be cut in correct points. So obviously that thing is moved. All the positions are moved with encoders and their respective controllers. So it's not using servos; it's just using a encoder feedback and using drives to move shafts backwards forwards. So obviously I need to upgrade all that and put new PLC into it. So the PLC I went to is a S1200 series PLC, which supports up to 6 inputs. I need 7, so the 7th one I will use ET200 SP station for that. So one thing about 200 series PLCs is because once you change inputs to encoder inputs, it doesn't really have memory. It just receives the values and it just does its business. And as soon as you restart, it starts back from 0 because you're taking a ID and you're trying to move it, and on the startup that ID will be 0. It doesn't have memory. I'll show that in a minute in the PLC how PLC tells you does it hold a value or not. So in our case, that input does not hold value, and for me to have a values changed every time the machine gets shut down, the machine gets shut down every night. So the values in the morning would be all back to 0 and all the positions would be lost. So in this video, we're going to have a look at how to retain these positions and make sure that on the startup, every single position that was there in previous, before the shutdown, it's still there. And we're going to be using a startup organization block to help us out with that. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's get started. So here we go, guys. I already created a small input with encoder input ID 1000, and I'm storing this value in my data block in here, which is what I call it in basic data block 2, and I'm called encoder value, and I'm storing it into this data block. Another thing what we're going to do, we're going to retain it. So in the shutdown, it will always try to remember this value. But what happens in here when it starts up, ID 1000, it's always 0. So as soon as it starts up, the ID 1000 will be moved into this block and overwritten. So it's going to be 0 no matter what you do. So to demonstrate that, let's load that in and let's have a look how that will look like in real life. And there we go. As you can see, there is my value. I can move things around and everything's happening. And that's what's going to happen when we shut down. So we close it down. So the system is going to shut down and we start it back up. And as you can see on our startup, everything's returned back to 0. So no matter what this data block does in here, you retain the value on the shutdown, but when you start that up, it gets overwritten. So we somehow need to update a ID 1000, and to do that, we can have a bit of a help from the controller for high-speed encounters. So let's have a look what we can do in here for that. So first things first, let's take this counter in here because we are going to need that one. It's going to create our data block for that. So from there on, let's say the first one, we're going to be this controller is going to be working for a HS1. Several things can be done in here, and one of them, you can change the ID 1000's value. But what we need to do is we need to do that on the startup somehow. So that's why magical organization block startup comes very handy. So this guy in here. So what is this guy going to do? As you can see in here, OB will execute one time when the operation mode of the PLC changes from stop to run. After completion, the main programming cycle OB will begin executing. So basically, it will do this first for one cycle and then crack on with everything else after that with normal programming, normal OB1. So let's do that. Let's create that. So now that we do that, so what we're going to do in here, we're going to create a move. Let's call it a move. and we're gonna take a block, this data that we saved in here. So let's split the screen a little bit. This data we have in here, we're gonna take that value from there. Remember, on shutdown, that value is saved, which is our last encoder value. And we're gonna move it, we're gonna create another DIN, which is gonna be new CV value, which means new ID value, which we can overwrite. So it's going to be entered into it on startup. So, and then that's going to be our output. Now that we've done that, another thing we need to do, we need to activate this. If you go back into the block in here, to be able to activate, send in the new C value, you need to activate it. So let's create activation as well. So in here, so I'm just gonna put it in here. So that's basically what we're gonna do, is just use a basic set. So there we go, set. Let's create a tag in our data block. I'm gonna call it set new CV. That's gonna be our bool. So, and to do that, we're just gonna set that here. Oop, probably. There we go. So now, on the startup, it will take the encoder last value, move it into new CV, and at the same time execute set. So in here, what's gonna happen when this block starts up, it will have new CV value, which is gonna be, let's do, so new CV value is gonna go into CV in here. And also, we're gonna set new CV value. And there we go. These two things gonna happen at the very beginning. It's gonna take this old value, put it into CV, and send that into ID 1000 once it starts up. So which is very, very handy. That way we're gonna memorize things. Another thing, the last thing we need to do, we need to reset it on the starter. We don't want to keep the set on all the time, so otherwise things is gonna be going bad. So for that, we are going to create that. And little contact in here, and we're gonna grab a small reset in here. So why not? So, and then we're gonna have when that's received, you just reset that, and that should technically now allow the value to be saved on startup. It's quite straightforward. So you're using, remember this controller in here, we already made quite a few videos, couple of videos actually about this controller. It's very handy. You can do a lot of things, and I use this a lot when I work with encoders. So it's very handy to have it. In this case, what we're creating in here is this initial startup to preserve the value. So let's compile it and send it in. And there we go, that's done. So let's jump onto our camera in here. Let's create a new position. So let's go plus. So let's say this is our last position, 1956. So let's shut it down and see if we have done a good job. And there we go. So it should start up now. So we'll be able to see if the value is there or not. And as you can see, the 1956 has been loaded into the controller and now is fully functional. Another thing what we can do in here, as you can see, we can continue for where we left off. Really, really handy block to have if you want memories to be retained that are getting lost on shutdowns. And that, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing this video. Hopefully it does help you out as well too, if you are working with encoders and you come across with this problem and not trying to figure out how to fix it. There it is. It's not the startup. It's not just for the encoders, for anything that you need startup to load some values on the startup, to override some values and things like that. Startup the OB organization block can do that for you. And that we'll do in this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it and is helpful to you. We will continue in videos later on how I progress with the project, because this project needs to be integrated into the SCADA systems, where computer is able to send in data into a data files, update their positions and execute it without using the HMI. But that's for the future videos. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe and do like if you liked the video, obviously, and I'll see you next time.